Everyone, I'm really excited to be here for an interview on schizotypal personality and creativity. And I'd also like to thank someone else with schizotypal personality for contributing some of the questions for today's interview.
Huh? Okay, that's
So
not me.
the first, yeah, but I'm very thankful to you for your answers. So the first question is, how would you describe what StPD is about?
It's hard to grasp, really. I mean, I have made notes on your questions that regard to me. I mean, everything in your questionnaire, you could call it questionnaire, re relates to me in some way. And what I wrote under your first question was, I'm almost always liken schizotypia or schizotypal personality disorder to typal or tuple? Typal, right? English
It's,
is my first language. Hello there.
yeah.
Um, anyway, I always almost I wrote there, I almost always liken it to schizophrenia with one big but. I can tell that those intrusive thoughts, those ideas, those delusions of grandeur or whatever the delusion might be of, that it's intrusive thought and not reality. A schizophrenic person might have more difficulty discerning. Yeah, and I'm not really sure what is my personality and what is the disorder of my personality anymore. It's, huh, yeah, I can, by now, I have learned, let's put it that way, by now I have learned to put those ideas of whatever the idea might be of, um, just push it to the side and go on with my life. By now I've learned with mantras and like it's just a thought. That's a good mantra for me. And yeah, if someone knows what schizophrenia really is, because it's not, um, it's not that uncommon. It's very widely spread. I have probably have some genetic predisposition to it, to schizophrenia itself, because schizotypal personality disorder is right beside it. You could say it's part of the greater group of schizophrenic disorders, I'd call it. I'm not a specialist, but that's how I understood it. And yeah, really, the biggest difference between schizophrenia and schizotypal disorder is I know those intrusive thoughts are intrusive thoughts and nothing more. And I have seldom, rarely, if ever, thought, that sounds good. That's a good idea. Yeah, I'll jump over this. I mean, those thoughts that are normal in dreams, like I'll just jump over this pond. It's only 20 meters long. I can walk along the water. Those thoughts, I once didn't take one of my meds, and the one that is antipsychotic, the antipsychotic medication. And I didn't take it for 2 weeks because I didn't have it and wasn't exempt from the fee you normally pay. It's much lower than the original price, of course, but you have to contribute. And I wasn't exempt from that at that moment, so I couldn't get it because money is always tight, especially if you're a smoker. Anyway, those intrusive thoughts felt to me after those 2 weeks. I had a lot of stress at that time. That's maybe why the intrusive thoughts came around again. Anyway, after those 2 weeks without my antipsychotic, I had thoughts that are logical in dreams but aren't in reality. Like, okay, that's green, that's grass you shouldn't walk on. Okay, but I can jump over that. Yeah, it's like 20 meters. I can just, if I do like Yoshi in the Super Mario games, if I go really fast, I can just hop on the air. And thoughts like that kept popping into my head. That's when I knew I had to get my antipsychotics again. But I could still discern them. Yeah, that's a long answer for one question. Wow. If we
Yeah.
go on like
Well,
this, it might be too long.
that's okay. Long is great. I think it's a really interesting answer. The next question
Thank
is
you.
kind of related to it. So I know you mentioned some of those, I guess, like dreamlike thoughts. Are there other thoughts or behaviors you have that indicate that you have schizotypal personality, like social anxiety, different perceptual experiences, anything?
Yeah, you made a whole list of those. That's and everything in this list. I mean, I'm gonna read them out right now,
Okay,
and
awesome.
I've made some notes on almost all of them. No, wait a minute, only two. I wanted to make notes of on all of them. Hmm. Anyway, ideas of reference is what you first um wrote down. Definitely. I have had I have had several occasions where I heard someone laugh behind me and was thinking, okay, they're laughing about me. It was harder in school. It was when I was still in school. I might add, I'm 39. When I was still in school, so until I think I was 18, I had a harder time discerning the thought of they're laughing about me from reality because intrusive thought, classic intrusive thought, classic idea of reference. So ideas of reference, definitely. Social anxiety, I can usually overcome it nowadays, I wrote down. So yes, definitely. I social anxiety, it comes in waves, interestingly, with me. Atypical beliefs, magical thinking. I was thinking of citing my religious upbringing and yeah, well, religious upbringing, and I still believe in some stuff I learned. So you could say atypical beliefs, magical thinking, yes. Unusual perceptual experiences. Well, I have no one to compare it to. I can't just enter another's body and perceive it through their mind. So I don't know. Unique behavior or appearance? Well, unique behavior might become evident or has already become evident, I guess, in this video or in this interview for now. Unique behavior or appearance? Yes, appearance is yeah, I have a little art corner over there. Wait a minute, no, that's not the art corner. There. This is all the art stuff for analog art. Yeah, that feels weird, but it's right place.
Yeah.
Uh, and I have no idea what I was gonna say. Wait a minute, appearance, right? And I had once had a vernissage, so an opening, exhibition, opening of an exhibition, where I wore shoes that were normally broken beyond repair, but I wore them because I had painted on them. And it made the local, I mean, not news. It made the local news is too much, but it made one part of I think one third of a page was a picture of my shoes. I like that. I like that very much. So unique behavior or appearance definitely. Differences in friendships. Not having close friends is a bad example in my case, but less friends maybe? No, that's not quite true. I have a lot of friends. I have a very small circle of close friends. That might be true. Yeah, that's definitely true. Differences in speech. If I spoke German right now, uh, it might have been more evident, but I don't. So maybe in English, I'm by now I might be as versed in English as I am in German. You never cease to learn, of course. But differences in speech, I try to use as many beautiful words. I mean, beauty lies in the eye of the beholder, of course, but I'll try to use as many beautiful or old words that aren't in use anymore, but still have a meaning. Like, I wouldn't say gay if I meant jolly. Yeah, as I said, jolly is an old word. Like, I don't know, merry-go-round is still used, but merry, jolly are old words. I don't remember any other words. Okay, let's see. Differences in speech. Being perceived as showing less emotions. I've never gotten that feedback, no. I think that doesn't apply to me. Suspiciousness or paranoia, definitely. Just not in the sense that it becomes an obsession so far. Let's I would knock on wood, but I'm not superstitious. That's being superstitious is unlucky to be. You know what I mean. Whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, suspicion is okay. Yeah, those are those. What kind of thoughts or behaviors do you have that indicate? Okay, what else? I couldn't concentrate because my mind was constantly flying in school. Not always, but especially when the mobbing. Okay, mobbing doesn't mean mobbing in English. That's bullying. Bullying, especially when the bullying became harder or tougher. Going gets tough, the tough gets going. Yeah, whatever. Um, Especially when the bullying in school became tougher and harder to stand. My thoughts in class when I wasn't being bullied because there was one language class where I had two other classmates. So that's like 2 or 3 times a week, but it was enough to really finish me.
Mm.
But what I was about to say, I couldn't concentrate on what was being said in front. I couldn't concentrate on anything anymore because the thoughts kept piling up, it felt like, in my mind. And then the work in school started to pile up. So almost ADHD like, but that was excluded from my diagnosis because it was there are several points in ADHD diagnostic criteria that didn't fit important diagnostic criteria. So what else? Huh? No, nothing comes to mind. Have you noticed anything about me? I don't know. I've got my hair done. No, never
Oh,
mind.
cool.
Never mind.
Um,
No, just kidding. That's 2, 3 weeks ago already, so never mind that. Yeah, those are the kinds of thoughts and behaviors that you listed, and what I had. Yeah, nothing else comes to mind.
yeah. Well, thank you for going through those and explaining, yeah, I guess like your experience with each of them, the ways that they did or didn't apply to your experience. The next question is one that I'm especially interested in your answer to, which is how has schizotypal personality influenced your creativity? And do you have any examples of times where you feel like it's made you a more creative person?
I don't think I can tell because the StPD is because it probably started when I was little to manifest itself. I'm not even sure how old. I mean, when I started to notice it, I was already like 12, 13, 14. that some others didn't think the way I did. So I can't really tell because I only have my own perspective. I don't think StPD has influenced my work. Well, it probably has, but I can't really grasp the difference to any non-StPD patient. Yep. What? I'd say that has it influenced my creativity? I'd say it hasn't. Neither for the worse nor for the better. Although I have to say that when the StPD is strong in me, that sounds like the force is strong in him. The StPD is strong in him. Anyway, when that happens, and that's usually when my depression acts up again, then to get out of the depression, I have painted more often. So maybe it hasn't made me more creative or less creative, but maybe it has made my art more expressive. That's how I would put it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And that makes sense. So it's probably in some ways almost an impossible question to answer because you'd almost need a parallel version of yourself without STBT to figure out
Exactly.
what the
You'd have
comparison
to
would be.
exactly. You could then compare the art, but we haven't yet found a way to travel to parallel universes where I don't have STPD, and I don't think those universes exist.
Yeah. The next question is, I think you've touched on this a little bit with your art, but what are some creative outlets that you enjoy? And yeah, just feel free to describe anything about that.
I really you know those short biographies in Twitter and stuff. I mean, Twitter is dead, long live X and stuff, but never mind those. Truth Social. No, please, no, no, please, no. Thank you. Anyway, I really enjoy music, and what I write into every short bio, so shortest bio in my case, is music addicted visual artist. I'm really addicted to music. Not only to music, but I won't touch on any of the other stuff. I'm addicted to music in the sense that I need to listen to at least one song a day. I mean, I think statistically speaking, if you take the median and have the days with the least, I don't think one is even enough. I think the days where I least listen to stuff is when I sleep the whole day, so I don't listen to any song, of course. But I always have some music right there to be played on my machine or from any streaming service and so on and so forth. I need music, and especially when yeah, I mean, listening to music isn't really the outlet. The outlet that I really enjoy is visual arts in general, anything manual at the moment in particular, or, or that also comes in waves. So sometimes I really enjoy to make so far hardly any AI, but I have a specialized program, free to use, open source, Mandelbalberov name, and that you can let the program render three-dimensional virtual objects that are pretty much fractals. I don't know if you know what a fractal is. Look it up. Whoever's
I
out there
do.
who doesn't know, look it up. You'll be amazed. Anyway, and those fractals, I mean, the next logical step would be to finally print one out I think it's giclée print, very fine printing method with 16 ink cartridge 16 different colors in ink cartridges, and then to paint over it, to work over it analog Analogically? No. Huh? To work on it with real paint and acrylics and oil and whatnot. That would be the logical next step that I'm still feeling kind of not so good about. So I'm not stepping into that right now. But anything visual arts, anything design. I mean, I've made a not yet printed, but I've made a set of cards, poker cards, as of lately, and anything that goes in the visual, and especially on my some of my pictures are trying to break up the boundary between painted works and sculpted works, so they have more depth to them, and so that um yeah, I think any art form can reach into any other art form in ways that aren't yet thought of. We still have some possibilities that haven't been thought of yet. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to break that barrier down, and that's what I do in my visits. I try to, at least.
Thank you. That's interesting. I don't know much about art at all, but I think it sounds really interesting that you're trying to kind of cross the boundary or combine
Combine, yeah,
yeah.
combine really.
The next question is also tangentially related, but have there been times of life where you've had more or less creativity? And what things do you find increase your creativity or sources of inspiration for you? And what things kind of drain or decrease your creativity?
Um, introvert, extrovert, right? And then there's someone in between would be, I mean, completely right in the middle, or a field in the middle, I guess. It's a spectrum after all. Um, Ambivert. And that also goes like, if the needle is here, it's extrovert, that's introvert, and the needle goes like this all the time in my case. I mean, not over the course of a few seconds, of course, like I do now. It's like I don't know, 1 microhertz, if you prefer hertz. Anyway, but what has really inspired me were travels with my mother at the time. That's wow. Last time I was to the US in 2002, or was it 2000 no, 8. 8 I was the last time. That was my father. What I wanted to mention right there, and also that's what kicked off my painting, me painting, so that I would finally get into it again. Because when I was little, I used to paint all manner of things. But what really kicked me off when I was almost grown, let's call it almost grown up, was a visit to Santa Fe, New Mexico. It's on 2,000 meters, so that's, I think, 7,000, 8,000 feet above sea level. And the light is different than when you're here, where I live. We have, I think, 500 meters or 300 meters above sea level, so that's like 1,000, 1,500, I think, feet, just for people to have relate. Yeah, they might be able to relate. But it's different lighting there. And then we visit the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum. Must see. Still, I can say that because I'm pretty sure they didn't burn down or anything. At least I hope they haven't done anything to it. And what has lessened my creativity were that's interesting. That's long ago. There was, as I mentioned earlier, the bullying in school really, really pushed me down mentally. But after I stopped school, I had to stop school without a you'd call it diploma, we call it matura, matura. Anyway, uh yeah, when I stopped school without the diploma, you'd call it, as I said, and then no, wait a minute, that must have been before I stopped school. Yeah, the visit to Santa Fe was the last summer when I was still in school. Yeah, and to get out of there and I think we were there for a month, staying with a friend of my mother's. And all those art galleries, it's beautiful there. The lighting, there's one artist that does sculptures in metal and lets them rust in part, and that looks fascinating. I don't remember the name of the artist. But then, as I got older, and at some point realized, hey, you don't have to get that diploma, even though it's called differently. You know what I mean? You don't have to get that finishing diploma of your school. You just need to live. You just need to, well, what do you need to do? What is life all about? When I got to that point, a big weight was lifted off my shoulders, and I started to paint yet again because during the summer in Santa Fe, I had painted a little, just scraps, really, drafts. But anyway, decrease my creativity. Yeah, well, if I'm really in a depressive hole, I mean, I don't have suicidal thoughts anymore any longer. I mean, yeah, I don't have them would be an overstatement, but it's getting rarer and rarer. It's more seldom every day. Let's call it day because statistically speaking, I still have 0.001 suicidal thought per day over the last, I don't know, year. I don't know. They still occur. They're very rare. Can you have half a thought? I don't know. Anyway, statistically speaking, you probably can.
Yeah, I suppose you could have
Yeah.
it like tangentially related or something.
Pardon?
Oh no, I just think that's an interesting question of whether you could have half a thought. I suppose you could have a thought that's like somewhat related that could somehow be classified as half, but um,
Yeah, yeah, I see what you mean.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
where you have the beginning of the thought but instantly push it away. That
yes,
could that could count as half a thought. You're right. You're
yeah.
right.
But I'm
Yeah,
I'm
well,
very
it's not so much. Pardon?
oh, I just want to say I'm glad that they're much rarer for you now.
Yeah, the suicidal ones. Yeah. I mean, it's not so much a decrease in creativity. It's just that the outlet is blocked for some time. Then I have artists block in normal ways, of course, as well, because I can now proudly say I'm an artist. 10 years ago, I would have said something along the lines of I'm aspiring to be an artist. Now, I mean, I have a whole portfolio. But I wouldn't call it a decrease in creativity. I'd call it when I'm in the depressive hole, I'd call it a decrease of creative output. That the output gets less, but the creativity is bottled up during that time, kept safely away for a time, and at some point it pops up and it pops open. It just pops open, and my whole brain is filled with thoughts and ideas. But that's usually after the depressive episode, of course. So, what are sources of inspiration? That's also an interesting question. Women, mostly women, some men, but and of course sometimes everyone. Some men, some women, some people in between. Anyway, music. lyrics in particular of certain songs. Have you heard of this band? I mean, it doesn't exist anymore, but Portishead, they brought out their last album in 2008 and their last single, I think, in 2011. But there's never been a fourth album, studio album. They've brought out 4 albums, but one is live, so I don't count that. But I can, wow. And I just recently got the solo album of Beth Gibbons. I'm still in the process of listening through it. I already love it. It's called Life's Outgrown. I would say hashtag Spawn, but it's not.
I was the next question, if you're okay jumping to it, is just if you've experienced hallucinations or delusions, and then if so, anything you'd be comfortable sharing about that.
Okay, next thing I will mention is legal in my country. I don't know about yours. But shrooms, yes, they have led to some ideas to almost delusions of grandeur. I mean, not about me, but that's something else entirely. That comes with question number 2.3, atypical beliefs in magical thinking. Those are thoughts about God and how I see him, maybe even a spiritual experience. But I'm not even sure if I have experienced hallucinations. My doctor, when I was, I think the first 3 sessions with him, I mean, not really a session because he's just my doctor for prescribing meds in the psychiatric field. So it's like a psychiatric doctor, I'd say you'd say. I I I think you'd say. There you go. Well, that psychiatric doctor asked me, well, have you had any, asked pretty much the same question. Have you had any experience of hallucinations, delusions, whatever? Visual, heard anything that you thought might have been not there? And I can't say that I really had them as hallucinations. Sometimes I'm not sure if people say what I heard.
Hmm.
Sometimes I'm pretty sure they said that, but I still hold myself back with the reaction I would normally do. So because what did you just say? Did you just call me an asshole? Because I'm not sure at the moment, of course. But I have the feeling that I'm very, very close with my StPD to schizophrenia. Sometimes maybe hallucination wise, interestingly enough, delusions are just almost never. I mean, yeah, shrooms is not StPD, that's shrooms. But hallucinations, I can never be sure, I feel like, except if I take my meds, of course. Then I can almost always be sure, but I still am not always sure. So I can't really say that I have had hallucinations, but I also can't deny it. No comment without my lawyer.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
I mean, if so,
And
what has your experience been with? Oh, yeah. If they were hallucinations, they were talking about me in some derogatory way or some dismissive way or holy shit, yes, I've had hallucinations. I mean, maybe they're not quite hallucinations, they're mishearings or your brain gets an input from the ears but interprets it completely wrong. That might have been, I mean, it's bordering on hallucination. So the the nature of my hallucinations was almost always something audible. And what it started with, that's like 3 years back. No, that must have been before the pandemic. Wow. 5, 6, 7 years? I don't even know. was that I heard someone call my name really far away, that I never knew if I had really heard something that I interpreted wrong, or someone really called my name because they were calling someone else or whatever. I don't know what's going on over there. I'll never know. Or anything in between. And now I'm pretty sure, because that happened like 4 times since then. And that's a very long time. For 7, let's say 5 to be in the safe side. But four times that I heard my name called very far away in 5 years, that's acceptable. 0.8 per year. I like that. I like that statistics.
Well,
Those statistics. And what has the experience been like? Yeah, it's suspicious. Suspicious. It leads to suspiciousness and paranoia. It's oil into the fire of my paranoia. That's always brooding. I mean, at the moment, I don't even feel it at the moment. Interestingly, I trust you. Okay.
thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, I instantly trusted you. You seem trustworthy. Do you want to join our party? I don't know if you ever seen the Gamers movie.
Yeah, I hope I'm
That
trustworthy.
seems acceptable.
Uh,
Pardon?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
but that's experience with my let's call them hallucinations. Why not?
mm, thank you. And I don't think we got to last time is how do you feel when interacting with other people or kind of during social interactions in general?
Well, I've been paying more attention to all that you
Mhm.
asked lately. Okay,
Oh,
that's
awesome.
you better.
Yeah.
And I noticed that it really depends on how much I can interact with them, on how much on a level I am with them, but mostly what I seem to notice in social interactions is how little people usually notice of their surroundings. So if I, for example, I mean, it never happened to me. That exact example never happened to me. But let's say someone has a part of their finger that is not as tanned as the rest of the finger. I might ask if it came out with no naturally in conversation, or but I might ask, were you married, or what about that ring situation, if I may ask? Because that looks lighter, that part of your skin looks lighter, as if you wore a ring recently. And most people wouldn't even notice it. So I feel like, I don't know what part, of course I don't, but I don't know what is my personality. I don't know what is my socialization, my upbringing. I don't know. And I don't know what the schizotypical part is here. Maybe I don't have as many filters that would make me akin to autistic spectrum disorder, but I'm too functioning. I'm too high functioning for that to be true. So maybe it has to do with my personality. Maybe it has to do with the disorder of said personality. I wouldn't be able to tell. But let's say I'm just hanging with my best friend and we just sit around and talk about stuff or whatever. When I know the person well, all that seems to matter less. The filters, the filters that I do have, I mean, I guess they are more than the average person, or no, the filters are less than in the average person, but even less so in Okay, no, I have to reformulate that. I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, if I'm understanding correctly, it's like you're more maybe blunt or direct than the average person, and maybe especially so when with people that you feel really close to. Or
I wouldn't. Well, maybe I'm the only one, but I wouldn't call it blunt as just more observant. And I'm
yeah.
not sure where the observance itself comes from. Maybe it's just um maybe it's just a mechanism that my brain built up over time because it learned that when you notice the little things, you might see something coming from a long way. Be it I don't know, be it a bar fight, be it a kiss that suddenly comes to my cheek, or I mean, I've never been in a bar fight, but maybe because I noticed it early on that I just left and later heard of the bar fight. And I don't even know why I left myself. My subconscious does it on its own, it seems. I don't know. So I wouldn't call it blunt. I would call it yeah, more observant. And blunt, yes, but only if the person seems like chill and not too, jittery, not too nervous. Yeah, that I ask questions that might indicate, how do you know I was married? That might induce questions or reverse question. Is that what it's called? Reverse question? No, Gegenfrage, Gegenfrage. That's German for answering a question with a question. So how did you know I was married? Well, I noticed that little, just to stay in the pictures, just stay in the metaphor, in the example. I noticed that you weren't as tan here, and then I thought, well, maybe she wore a ring or whatever. So it's maybe the observance itself, yeah, that sometimes happened. My observant personality, I'm calling it observant personality now, uh, has become its own topic in conversation, you could say. And if I'm blunt, then I'm trying to be soft soft as I can at the same time, so as to not intrude too much. Because I do know and I have noticed that most people aren't as observant as I am. There are certain exceptions. I have a friend who is on the autism spectrum somewhere. I think it's Asperger's, but that's the old nomenclature, so I have no idea what he would be in the modern stuff. But it's a spectrum, so. But he learned his own filters. He shuts off for example, just a short diversion from course, just ex course, is that what it's called? Ex course, it's what it's called in German. Anyway, about autism, or at least this person that I know, very good friend of mine, when he is on the phone and someone says something to him but not his name, it might happen that he doesn't even notice. He's in his phone at that moment. Visually, his ears seem to have shut down for the second, but as soon as he hears his name, his own name, he'll react, of course. But he seems to have built his own filters for that, for conversations and for interaction. Yeah.
And they
Oh,
actually
about
kind
filters.
yeah.
Just one thing about filters. I had to. I mean, I'm not saying I'm autistic. All I'm saying is that as a child, I already felt observant, and that came in waves.
and some days you don't notice stuff because you're preoccupied with your own mind. That's normal for me, but I still have a feeling that I process, well, a lot of useless information, of course, but I think in a way I feel I might be able to process more information, not that I could use it as well. So I'm not processing it completely, but I'm processing more information than, let's say, um, neuronormative person, let's call it that, because there is no normal in my eyes. Normal doesn't exist. Normal is just a curve, and every point that makes up the curve is not on the curve. There is no normal in my book.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's just.
agree. Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, thank you for explaining that. The next
Well,
question is a little bit of a jump, but what would be your ideal type of social interaction?
oh, I remember that question. What would be my, well, I thought about that a lot since last time, and I think we were interrupted exactly when you asked that question, that my internet connection died down because my phone died. Well, the battery, but it was at the time. Yeah, I remember that question, and I've given it a lot of thought in the recent weeks now. Wow, it's been a long time since we did that first part, huh? Well, my it very much depends, of course, on my how I got up. If I got up angry because of a dream or whatever, that's a given. But let's say I am with my best friend, and the times when we communicate directly via speech, of course, is always very clear. At least we try to be. Excuse me. At least we try to be as clear as possible, because clear communication is always key, no matter what the relationship type is, in my eyes. And that comes very close. Or let's say we want to be for ourselves for a moment. Let's say we stay in the same room, but she's playing on her gaming console, or I'm playing on my phone or whatever, and we just sit there in silence and do our thing. But we communicated that earlier, and very clearly we communicated, well, I need a little time for myself, and the other says, okay, then I'll preoccupy myself with something else as well. And that comes very close to a perfect social interaction for me, normally. Sometimes I just have to talk and can't stop talking. Then I get on my own nerves by talking. That is not the type of interaction I have in mind, where I just monologue and the other person doesn't say a thing. Nope, not my type of interaction. Even though sometimes I'm is that the word, logorrheic? So I talk and talk and talk and can't seem to stop. Like right now.
Yeah, that's I'm very happy to listen right now. I
Pretty cool.
appreciate hearing what you're saying. But yeah,
No,
that's really
but
interesting.
that's interaction that I described with my best friend. It's to be exact, it's a series of interactions, but it's one. You could boil it down to clear communication by both parties, and as long as it takes, but also no longer than that. And my social interactions with my best friend are mostly that. We're not perfect, we're human. Not always, as I said, but most of the time, that's a perfect example of a very good to perfect social interaction.
Yeah, I also personally really like those qualities in a social interaction.
Excuse me?
Oh, I also really like, I guess, like clear communication and interaction. It just makes it so much easier to not have to try and guess if people are implying something with like a raise of their eyebrow or, a subtle turn of phrase. So, yeah.
I mean, I do notice, and I'm not sure how it was as a child. I'd have to look into that, but I can read other people's faces. But sometimes it's just so annoying that they don't talk, that they don't say what they mean. That they just imply something that you don't get because you were preoccupied with something else. And what I usually say then, when I'm just fed up with the situation, I say, okay, come on, I can't read minds yet. I'm on it, but I can't read minds yet. Please communicate what you want, how you are, if you want to talk about it. If not, why not? Well, if you don't want to talk about that, then let's talk about something else completely. But be clear in your communication. Please, all of you people, be clear what you want. Don't imply something just because you think, I don't know. Do you know Paul Watzlawick?
No, I don't think so.
Paul Watzlawick wrote a very famous book. I'd have to translate it on the spot right now. I'm not just the title is important. How to be unhappy. Anleitung zum Unglücklichsein is the German phrasing. So manual for being not happy, for not being happy, is another version of the interpretation of my interpretation of the title. And he writes in his book about the hammer. The story of the hammer is very short, so I'm gonna bring it for a second there. The hammer, let's say a person wants to hang up a picture. They have a nail, but they don't have a hammer. Okay, the neighbor has a hammer. I could ask him if he, and then you read for a few lines in the book. You read the inner monologue of that person with the nail. My neighbor has a hammer. I could ask him if he'd like, if I could borrow it from him. Um, but what if he says no? It's weird. Yesterday he greeted me only fleetingly. Maybe he was preoccupied, but maybe he has something against me. And all those thoughts about what could be make him mad already, even though the interaction itself, if he gets the hammer or not, hasn't even happened yet. He's already mad at the person he wants to borrow the hammer from, so he storms over, knocks on the door of the neighbor, and the neighbor opens, and before he can answer and say anything like "good day" or whatever, the person with the nail says, you can keep your hammer. You can keep your stupid hammer." And that, in my eyes, is a really self-preoccupied. Is that a phrase?
Yeah, I think
Self-preoccupied?
so. Yeah.
I hope.
And also
I
just
hope.
like self-sabotaging in a way.
What was the word?
Self-sabotaging in a way.
Well, self-sabotaging is what he, of course, does with all
Yeah.
this self-centeredness and
Right.
thinking about what could be and taking it for granted, even though he hasn't even talked to his neighbor yet. Yes, there are certain thoughts that will arise when you think about getting a hammer from your neighbor, but don't take them for granted. Don't take them for granted. Just clearly communicate what you have to do. I wonder, yeah, and wait until the interaction actually happens. Cross the bridge when you get there. But I get it. my mind does it all the time, and without me even controlling it, I have a certain feeling. So I get the thoughts where they're coming from. They're coming from the human's ability to foresee, or not foresee, but to be prepared for everything. I get it, but please don't do it in human interaction, or not always. And if you have a bad feeling, ask yourself, is that bad feeling because I thought something bad, or because you really that, let's stay in the example, that neighbor, because that neighbor really has something against me and I have proof of it, or he sits. I mean, that's get over the bridge, or get over that bridge when you get there. Or what was the expression? I forgot it already again.
Oh, yeah, I should know that. Is it like cross the bridge when you
Cross that
get to
bridge
it?
when you get there. Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Awesome. Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah,
It's
I'd never
showing
heard the
me
hammer story before, but that's a really good metaphor for probably a lot of things with social interactions, actually. The
yeah,
next question.
one of my caretakers. I mean, caretaker sounds as if I'm
Mm,
in a caretaker's home, or I'm not. I'm not, but I do have a therapist, a psychotherapist, and I think she told me that story, or I think I called her a few days ago. Yes, of course, Wednesday or yesterday. I'm not sure. Anyway, I called her. She had a few minutes of time, and she told me about the hammer story. That it's only in your mind you get to hates that you never know if they are true, and if you take them for granted, you might even blow off your own neighbor, even though he hasn't done anything to you.
yeah, absolutely.
I'm not even sure what the question was anymore. I like this. I like this
Oh,
type
well, I
of
think you answered it
conversation.
really well. It was what would be your ideal type of social interaction? So you were kind of
Well,
describing the clearness and
wow.
directness and yeah.
Well, that was a very long answer, don't you think? Well,
It's a
anyway,
great
go
answer.
on, go on.
The next one is when you realize that you have a schizotypal personality, did it surprise you, or did you already suspect that you had something similar, but just didn't know what to call it? And kind of related, but did it make sense to you right away, or did it take you some time to process it?
When had my first appointment with my then psychoanalyst, no, it wasn't, no, psychotherapist, it wasn't like psychiatrist. Oh God, that word, psychiatrist. Anyway, when I had my first appointment with my then psychiatrist, she's in, what is it called? Pension now. She's gotten, yeah, well-deserved pension. But she was my first, and I didn't even get a diagnosis right away. Of course not. Who in their right mind in that field does that? But I already had an inkling. I had when I was 8, for example, I thought every single person on this planet. I didn't know the word neurodivergent then, but I thought at 8 years old, I thought something along the lines of every single person on this planet has something psychologically, psychologically, let's leave it at that, that could be treated. So my theory when I was 8 years old was every single person on this planet is neurodivergent in their own way. You can help every single person with psychotherapy. Today I know a lot more about stuff, but when I was 16 or 17, no, it must have been when I was 16, 17 years old, yeah, going on 17. I got a new subject in school, which was psychology and pedagogics. I hope I'm saying that right. Philosophy came the next term, but it was PPP, psychology, pedagogics, and philosophy. But the first two were in 7th. No, that's in your 11th grade, I think. And in 12th grade, we got the philosophy part. Anyway, that rekindled, I'm not even sure.
Yeah, rekindled.
Rekindled, okay. Kindling, right, kindling. Okay, not kindling. Would you be so kind? No, kind. What? That last coffee was too strong. Anyway, that new subject in school rekindled my curiosity. Okay, if every single person on this planet has something that can be treated psychologically, what do I have? What's going on with me? Because at childhood, I don't know, maybe it was with 8 when I had that theory that I first thought, I don't think that everyone perceives the world I do. Like I do. There you go. I don't think every person on this planet perceives the world like I do. And as I said, when I was 16, I was, of course, still in school and stuff. But I had more experience, and I thought, well, let's talk to a psychiatrist about my, let's call it, issues, because in 1st to 4th grade, I was just bored. I was understimulated by school. I mean, yeah, the writing, the cursive writing, that was new to me. But I could already read, I could already make the printing letters, but not the cursive, of course. So I learned the cursive. Okay, I learned the cursive. But everything else, just, I listened to it once, and I was different from other kids at that age. I was too serious, too non-childlike for my age when I was 8 or 6 for that matter, or 7. So I already had an idea that I had something. I had no idea what it was. So when that finally came in paper form, so printed on paper and stuff, that schizotypal, I mean, I think it was coded, and I looked it up. So it was F21.0 in the ICD-10, International Classification of Diseases, 10th edition. Chapter F is the psychiatric diseases. I mean, diseases, that sounds so negative. But you get the idea. And I looked it up, and it says schizotypal or whatever disorder, personality disorder. And I read it, and I thought, okay, that, not so much, but that, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, yeah, that's a lot of diagnostic criteria I actually meet. I agree with my doctor. She seems to be a good one. And from then on, everything got, well, not easier. No, not easier. It got more easy to understand for myself. I understood myself better. I only then realized how tangible this, with 16, 17, or yeah, I must have been 17 when I was at my first psychiatric appointment. Yeah, that I truly realized how tangible this difference from maybe not everybody else, but from most of the population was in me, in my personality, in my, well, disorder is something else entirely, but I'm usually disordered, so never mind that. But yeah. And what was the second part of the question?
Yeah, it was, I guess you kind of answered it, but like, did it make sense to you right away when you saw the diagnosis? Or was it something that took you time to sort of agree with or understand?
Well, when I got the diagnosis, I didn't get it, as I said, I didn't get it directly. I got it printed, and it wasn't for my eye. It wasn't really for my eyes, but in Austria, the law says, I don't know how it is in the US, but the law says as soon as a doctor writes something about you, you have the right to access it.
That's
So I read
interesting.
it. And then I read up on it. And no, it was, yeah, I think I answered, you're right. I answered that part in saying, yeah, when I said, yeah, I haven't formulated it quite as clearly yet. It opened my eyes to new ways, to new perspectives that I, of course, still in my own mind can only navigate like this, not like straight through, but I can still navigate it. But it's easier now that I know what I have. That's one of my first thoughts. That sounds like I could have it. That was the first thought, I think. That sounds like, okay, maybe not that part, that criteria, those criteria, those 2 or 3 that didn't fit, maybe not as strong at the time. It changed over time, of course, but yeah, it helped me a great deal, finally having a diagnosis. And I still think that I'm not completely diagnosed.
Oh, may I ask
Yeah,
what you mean by that, by not being completely diagnosed?
well, there were some tests when I was in hospital the first time. There was 1 month in full that I spent in the hospital by my own volition. Volition, is that the word? Volition. And there were tests made, but I never got to see those tests in their finished, no, not finished, in their well, I never got the results of those tests when they were made when I was 18, I think. So I think I should maybe do another one of those personality disorder or personality test would be interesting as well, of course. The 16 axes or whatever it's called, or 8 axes. Axes or axis?
Oh, I think axes because it's plural,
Axes.
but I'm not 100% sure. Yeah.
I think axes are the axes that you put to a tree to bring it down. But axes, yeah,
Yeah.
axis. You could be, yeah, I think you're right. Anyway, I should do a personality, maybe a specialized test for personality disorders. I know that I'm on the, maybe in the ICD-11, I think they have a spectrum now that is, they have a lot of spectra, I guess, or spectrums. Anyway, one of them is the schizophrenia spectrum, and I'm somewhere on there. We talked about this before when I said that usually I can discern the intrusive thoughts from the real ones. It's getting harder. It's getting harder. I have to admit that, to discern the real ones from the fake ones. But after a few minutes, I usually get myself together and say, okay, that thought was real stupid. That thought was real unrealistic, surrealistic, irrealistic, whatever. But I tend to take more time to discern between the thoughts. Yes. So what was the question again? Oh God, I should have
Yeah, no,
drinking more
you
coffee.
answered
I'm
it
not sure.
perfectly. I guess now I just actually have the last question, which is there anything else that you'd like to add that I haven't asked about yet?
To be honest, I don't know right now. I think I had something, but I didn't write it down. I thought I'd. Oh,
Yeah.
I think it was all covered in your questions.
Awesome.
What
Yeah.
I want, I mean, this is supposed to be a interview about schizotypical personality disorder, so we might have to talk about a little bit, at least, about depression as well, as a side note, as a let's say secondary diagnosis, because as soon as I got my first medication, which helped a great deal at the time, and I'm not gonna make any endorsements here, hashtag non-spawn, but it helped me a great deal at the time, and I'm still on antipsychotics. And when the first antipsychotic really hit me, like I could think more clearly and stuff, and everything wasn't moving as quickly in my brain. At least that's what it felt like, and it meant that I could finally take a look at the thought and put it there for now, or there, or you know what I mean. I hope that was a long time coming that I could finally do that again. And then when my thoughts were ordered again, came the thought, why can't I do this? Why is it so hard for me to, I don't know, shower every day, to brush my teeth every day? Why is it so hard for me to keep an orderly room, an orderly bedroom, or in this case, an orderly room in a shared apartment, shared flat? Is there some shorter way to say shared flat?
Not to my knowledge. Yeah.
Okay, then we will keep it with shared apartment or whatever. Well, how is it I can't, yeah, keep a tidy room, for example? How is it at the time I was still in school? How is it that everything is like a really big mountain of stuff to do, and I can't even seem to start the first little thing of it, to finally get it down to a small. I couldn't. That's depression. In my case, it was depression, and I think a lot of the depression today comes maybe because people don't even know what they have, and they are too afraid to ask at some point, to ask a professional, what could that be? Like, is is my laziness really laziness? No, it's not. It's not. No, it's not. In my case, it was depression. My room is tidier, but I still have other stuff to work about. But I feel like we have to really talk about depression, and that it manifests itself in different people in different ways, of course, because we're all individuals and have our own stories to tell. So what I really want to say to the people out there, please watch after yourselves. Maybe not too much. There is, but don't worry too much either. I know it's hard not to worry, because my brain does it all the time, every day, all day. It even worries when I sleep. So I dream about stuff that I worried about in the during the daytime. But now, after, wow, holy shit, I'm old. Um, I'm 39, as I said. I turned 39 in December, and
That's not too much older
20
than me.
years. It's been, pardon?
You're not too much older than me then.
How old were you? 35 or something?
No, I'm 30, but yeah.
30.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't sure anymore. Yeah, I'm not, well, going on 40 now this year. Anyway, what I really want to say to the people out there is don't worry too much. I know it's hard sometimes not to worry, but preoccupy yourself with something unimportant. Or when you have a panic attack, that can be that all those symptoms can be overthinking, can be a sign of maybe not depression, not in the case of overthinking, that's just obsessive compulsive personality disorder, I guess. That's why I said I'm not diagnosed for I don't have my final diagnoses. I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the plural here. But anyway, watch after yourselves and don't be afraid to ask. Most doctors are good doctors, and at least in my experience, of course. And at the same time, they won't bite off your head just because you have depression. Some therapists might have that approach by saying, but why are you depressed? You have everything in your life. But that might be, I'm not sure, I'm just a layman, but that might be a way to get you out of your shell. Maybe you get angry then, and when you're angry, you talk, and they want to get to you and want to get you to talk in their sessions. So don't always brush off every seemingly harsh attempt at helping you as harsh. So they might not even mean it that way. Just answer truthfully. They have what is that called? Silence agreement. What silent
Well,
agreement? What
confidentiality, I think. Yeah.
confidentiality? Yeah, they have this rule of confidentiality. Everything's confidential between you and your doctor or your nurse or your psychiatrist or your psychotherapist, any therapist really. And if you have depression or if you think you might have depression, get help. It's there are reasons why depression is, by most professionals at least, or by all professionals, is a known disease, because it is a disease, because people need to watch more after themselves. The system is all sick, in my opinion. Getting to work every day and working 9 to 5, and I wouldn't be able to survive in this world were it not for that would lead too far right now, but were it not for certain safety nets, social security safety nets, let's call them that, I wouldn't be able to function or even live in this society the way I live now. And we need to use them, and we must not be afraid to ask. Asking doesn't cost a thing. Just saying. Yeah, but that's just me.
No, thank you so much for bringing up the topic of depression as well and for your overview of it. Yeah, I just wanted to thank you again for all of your time and being interviewed, and I really appreciated the chance to meet you and to hear more of your thoughts and experience.
Thank you.